Hi, welcome to C# Essentials. We have put this course together to try and help people who would like to learn to program and to program with the C# programming language to get to a position where they have the confidence in their abilities as a C# programmer to continue at their own pace. Please understand that this is a journey. It's not a one-stop destination. You need to be prepared to join us in investing your passion and your time in this process. Please also understand that this is not a spectator sport. You're going to need to get your hands dirty. You can't simply sit and watch videos and expect to learn how to be an experienced programmer. You need to please try and follow the examples we're going to show you on the screen, try them on your own computer, and learn from your mistakes. In this episode, we're going to learn about some simple commands and tools that we can use to create and work with C# console applications, which will provide us with the opportunity to explore all of the essential aspects of C# that we need to become C# coders in the future. Okay, so we are going to walk through the process of creating a new C#.NET console application. A console application, remember, is an application that you use at the command line or the terminal. It displays stuff in text on the screen and typically accepts input, if at all, from the keyboard. We are going to start this process by going into the command prompt or shell, depending on which operating system you are working with. If you're working with Windows, it's called a command prompt, or if you're working with Mac, it's a terminal or shell, and Linux doesn't matter, they do the same thing. It's the command line interface for your operating system. And the reason we're going to do this is because we are going to create a new empty folder. Where you create it doesn't matter. What you want is a new empty folder that no other files or subfolders are contained within. And then once you have created that empty folder, you're going to navigate into that empty folder using the change directory command typically, and then you're going to use a command at the command line called .NET new console. You can see it on step 3. And then there's a --use -program -main. Don't worry about that. It's not important right now. The important thing is at the command line in the empty folder, critically in the empty folder, we're going to create a new C# application, a console application, using the .NET new command. And then once that's done, we are going to start VSCode with the code command. You can see it at the bottom in step 5. Code space dot. Dot meaning the current folder, and code saying start VSCode. I want to work with everything that exists within this folder. We are going to start by creating a new empty folder in our computer's file system in which we are going to create and work with our new default sample app. Simple rule of thumb is every time we create a .NET C# app in this course, we will create a new empty folder for it. Now I am working with the Ubuntu Linux terminal application here, so I have a $prompt. You can see the $prompt over here, and I can type in the command mkdir, which stands for make directory. It's the same command in Windows, and I'll just call this 0201, and then I will change directory into this folder 0201. And I can type in the ls command for list. In Windows that would be dir, and that shows me that the folder right now that we are in is completely empty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the .NET command, which would have been created when you installed the .NET Software Development Kit in the first session of this course. And I'm going to say that we're going to create a new console app, .NET new console, and I'm going to add to the end of the line use program, program main. Don't worry about the use program main right now. Suffice it to say, we're going to do this every single time we create a new .NET app. There's more information about it in the course later. Right now, we just don't care, just accept the fact that we're going to do it every time. Okay, so the .NET command said it's doing some stuff. It's created a console app for us successfully, and it's ready for us to do something. And if I type in the ls command again, you'll see that 3 new items have been created in this folder. A file called 0201.csproj, another file called program.cs, and a folder. I can tell it's a folder because it's in a different color. It's in blue in my case, obj. Now, what's important here is right now we don't care about the csproj file and we don't care about the obj file. All that we are interested in right now is program.cs. That is where our new C# default application is going to live. And what we're going to do now is we're going to type in the command code space full stop. Code is how you start VSCode, the Visual Studio Code IDE application that we installed earlier, and dot, the full stop, means the current folder. In other words, we're saying I want to start Visual Studio Code and I want to work with anything that exists, or everything should I say, I want to work with everything that exists in the current folder. And so I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now that we have created our new console app by using .NET new console at the command line or the terminal prompt, we are going to explore the code that was created using VSCode. We are going to figure out how it is that we can start a new terminal session within VSCode to run the application using .NET Run, and we're going to mess around with changing this behavior of our default application just to see that we can change code and the behavior will change when we run the application. After a short delay, you will see VSCode coming up on your screen for the first time. It'll look something like what I have in front of me, and it will possibly overwhelm you a little bit with too much information. So what we're going to try and do is simplify this down. The first thing that I want to point out is that there is a pane. There will be a pane normally displayed first up front, and it says Explorer at the top, and this basically shows you a list of the contents of the folder that you were in. And you'll notice that we got our program.cs, our csproj file, an obj entry, and then there's a new thing called bin, and you will find via experimentation, you will find that that is actually, that bin folder is created when you start VS Code for the first time in this folder. In other words, if you exited out of VS Code, you can exit out of VS Code by going to File and exiting down at the bottom here, or just obviously closing the window, and you remove the bin folder that's in that folder now, and then you start VS Code again, it'll come back. So VS Code and .NET are automatically creating that folder for you in the future. One thing that I find particularly annoying, irritating, and really incredibly patronizing is that everybody seems to insist that we have to have AI code running all the time, and this whole nonsense on the right hand side of my screen has got to do with the fact that everybody thinks I should use AI code, which actually I don't. So I'm just going to get rid of this. And that gives me a little bit more screen space to play with. Now, we don't care about the bin folder and the obj folder and the csproj file for the moment. What we care about is this program.cs file. So I've clicked on it in the Explorer column, and then you can see on the right-hand pane, we see the contents of this file. And very significantly, we have a bunch of lines that you don't need to worry about right now. What you need to concern yourselves about right now is the fact that there are these lines, namespace, class, program, static. This is an important line. Static void main says this is the starting point. This is what we call the entry point for our .NET application, our .NET program. And what that means is that everything that happens between these two curly braces, the opening curly brace and the closing curly brace, is going to run by default from top to bottom until you get to the closing curly brace, and then the program will end. So how do I run this? Because what it's telling me right now, and you'll learn this, you'll become very familiar with this later, but this is basically saying console is the screen in the command prompt. And what we want to do is display a line that says hello world on the command, on the screen output, on the command line output when we run the program. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start a new terminal. You'll see if you probably on your screen you'll have a lot more menu items, and you'll see terminal. Go to terminal and start new terminal. You'll see there's also a shortcut. If you hold Control Shift and then the back quote, you'll get new terminal. Okay, so now I have my source code, program.cs is in the top pane, and in the lower pane I have this terminal entry. There's some other things which I don't care about, but significantly what I have is another terminal prompt. It's the $sign. It's where we started when we created our folder in the first place. We are working with a command prompt or a terminal prompt, whatever it is for your operating system. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in .NET run. I don't need to say what program to run, because remember there is only one .NET program per folder, and we're in that folder. I could, before I type this, I could type in ls, and I'll see essentially what we saw before. We're in the same folder. The only difference now is the bin folder has been created, which didn't exist originally. I'm going to type in .NET run. It'll do some stuff, pretty much like we've seen right now. Don't worry about that. We'll get to all of this detail later. And ultimately, it'll say, hello world. So what we're saying is, what a console app does is it's something that we can run at the command line, at the terminal. We run a console application, and it can take input, as we will see later, from the keyboard, and it will display output on the screen. And the way we get it to display output is to use console.writeLine to display output. So if I wanted to demonstrate the fact that these things run in a sequence, let's change this. Let's copy this line and paste it twice in there. And then I'm just going to change these lines. Hello. And I'm going to change this to cruel. Whoops, cruel. And then we'll change this to world. Now, what I do need to do is remember to save this file, because until I've saved the changes, nothing is going to change in my world at all. So I'm going to just Control S as the shortcut for save. You can see that this prompt up here changed from a black dot to an X. I'll just make another change and show you what I mean. That black dot up there says the file has changed and is unsaved. But right now, because we've got an X there, everything is saved. And essentially what's going to happen is, when I rerun this application now, it's going to display hello cruel world on 3 different lines. Let's just hit the up arrow key in the terminal and do that. And let's see. Hello cruel world. Okay, so that's our first console app in C# and .NET. It's very, very rudimentary, I grant you, but that is the basic concept. Is a C# console app starts at a place called main, a static void main, this line. That's the first line. It's always by default in program.cs. In fact, every C#.NET app starts with a static void main, and it will start at the beginning and carry on to the end. And the beginning is this first curly brace, and the end is this last curly brace. If I remove these lines, save the file, and run it again, we have a C# app, console app, that does nothing. In other words, it is running, there's no error, There's no problem with it. It just has nothing to do. So there we go. Our first .NET console app that had a default application, a default outcome of saying hello world on the screen. Before we move on to more exciting things, real code, finally, a couple of things I just would like to point out to you, particularly the noobs, the new guys that are new to this. We have, as I said, the Explorer pane is normally displayed on the left hand side. You can resize it and hide it and all those good things and create new files. Lots of things we'll be doing with it later. The point is it lists the files, the contents of your C# or app program or app folder. And if it disappears, you'll see that in the extreme left hand side there is this shortcut key, and if you click on it then it hides it or unhides it. So you can always get it back by just clicking on this button over here. We're familiar with showing the contents of a file, so if I click on a file like csproj, then on the right hand side, we're going to go and look at these files later. They're really not important to us right now. So here's our console, our main app, where we originally had something like console.writeLine and hello world, I think it was, doesn't matter. And then we figured out that we could start a terminal session, which by default shows in the bottom of the screen, and we did that by going up to the menu and selecting the terminal menu and then say new terminal. But we could also use the shortcut of Control Shift, and then that's the back quote character on your keyboard, not the single quote, it's the back quote. Another important thing before we move on to more exciting things is to understand that VS Code is kind of an empty developer's tool. It doesn't know about any specific programming language or any specific syntax of any programming language. So by default, when you install VS Code, it knows nothing about C#, for example. So what you do is, as a coder, you install extensions, as they are known, to VS Code to work with the environment you're working with, so C# or Python or whatever. And if you go down this left pane over here, you will see there's this symbol over here, the extensions, and if I click on it and I scroll down, I have a lot of extensions installed, but you'll see one of them, and you will need this, is C#. So by default you will not have this, but if you go into the search extensions tab entry over here and you type in C# and you hit enter, you will see it eventually. This is the one you want, C# by Microsoft. This is the base support, the essential support for the C# language. It's what you want to have installed on top of your VS Code environment. So all you do is just click on it, and if it isn't installed already, it will install for you. Mine is already installed, as you can see, so I can uninstall it here or disable it, but I have no good reason to do that. So that's it. So we can have a whole bunch of extensions, of which I've just clicked back on the Explorer shortcut, and so I know that I've got the C# extension installed in my VS Code environment. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us. We hope that you found this valuable and that we are helping you on your journey to becoming a coder in the C# programming language. Please like and subscribe if you find this content useful, and share with anybody who you think would also like to benefit from our content. Also, please send us your feedback either in the comments section or by going to patreon.com/incremented and letting us know how we can do better. Please tell us what we can do to try and improve your experience with our content in the future. Thank you.